Hello and welcome to today's show. I'm Jamie Smith, Cancer Control Specialist with the Kentucky Cancer Program. Many of us know the risk associated with tobacco use. However, we may not know those risks associated with tobacco use on our family and friends. Kentucky is the nation leader in tobacco use. Tobacco use is the number one health threat in Kentucky. It contributes to more than 8,000 deaths a year, and the physical illnesses associated with tobacco use include cancer, cardiovascular disease, and respiratory illness. A smoker may realize the threat that tobacco use poses to themselves, but what about others around them? I'm joined today by two guests. Kaylene Cornell is the Health Education Coordinator, and Stacy Harris is the Tobacco Prevention and Control Coordinator from the Purchase District Health Department. Today they are going to share with us a message about asthma. It has become an alarming health risk for many Kentuckians. Today they will share with us important information about this illness and what we can do to help prevent it in the future. Thanks for joining me today.
Sure.
You're welcome.
We're glad to be here.
Good. Kaylene, if you just want to start off and just tell us a little bit about exactly what you do at the health department.
Sure. I'm Kaylene Cornell, and I'm the Health Education Coordinator there. And we just provide education to the community and to the schools, along with doing different variety programs.
Okay. And Stacy, tell us a little about your position there at the health department.
I'm the Tobacco Prevention and Control Coordinator, and part of my responsibilities are going to the schools and providing education on the dangers of using tobacco products. We also promote smoking cessation programs within the community and also educate the community on the dangers of secondhand smoke.
Great. Well, I know you all have a lot of great information to share with us today and several things for us to learn about. So first off, let's talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about asthma today, but maybe let's first start off and talk about what exactly parts of our body are affected by asthma.
All right. Well, we're looking at asthma being it's a chronic lung disease that you live with every day. It's not something that is cured and you can have it and not have it. You do have it your entire life. It's the most common chronic disease, one of the most common chronic diseases, but also is the most common chronic disease in children. So that's the important part of it. It affects the bronchial tubes of your, which are the airways in your lungs. And during an asthma attack, as they call it, you see the constriction and the inflammation of narrowing those airways where normally they're larger, opened, allowing the air to pass through. But during an asthma episode, the passage is narrowed and the mucus has increased, and so they're not able to move that air through, and that's where they have problems breathing and creates the difficulty.
So that's whenever a person is considered asthmatic in an asthmatic episode?
Yes.
Okay. So who is at risk for asthma?
Well, it can run in the families, but not necessarily. I mean, a child can have asthma and no one else in the family has it. Also, children with allergies, whether it be food sensitivities or even eczema, or, these are related, that you have a higher risk of having asthma. Someone with hay fever, may have asthma along with that. Bronchiolitis for a baby is hard in the lungs and possibly could have asthma. This does tend to resolve, though, and it does get better in that situation. Babies that are born prematurely can have asthma down the road, and it's important to know that it's not caused by emotional, where someone is going through a real emotional time. That is not going to be the cause of asthma. However, that can, if you are an asthmatic, that can have an influence on whether you're going to have an asthma episode. That could be one of the triggers. But also, people will say, well, it's just in your head. You just think that you have these, problems every so often. Asthma is definitely not in your head. It is a disease, and it's a serious disease.
Okay. So definitely some warning signs that we can see even in our young babies at home, with eczema and things like that. We can watch and be able to watch them later in life to see if they do actually develop asthma then, correct?
Right, yeah. It, especially 5 and under, the more frequent respiratory infections. It's just you tend to watch closely to see how frequently you see these upper respiratory infections come.
Okay, so definitely important to take them to the doctor and let the doctor be able to monitor them and watch for signs to be able to educate us on what to look for. Okay, so let's go into a little bit more depth about what are some things that can actually cause a person to become asthmatic, some of the triggers.
Okay. Well, if you can think of 4 different categories, one being, of course, the allergens, the animal dander, dust mites, cockroaches, pollens. Those are the ones that everyone tends to, relate to. It's the season, or it's the time of the year that my allergies flare up. But also there's mold that can go through the air too. It's not just mold that you see in your house. However, that is relating to it. But it also can be airborne. The other one is more environmental, and this is more, if you think of it as an irritant. It isn't necessarily an allergy related, but it is an irritant, and this is where the secondhand smoke comes from, whether it be cigarette or cigar smoke. But that secondhand smoke is a huge irritant actually. Dust, air pollution, strong fumes, perfumes or cleaning chemicals that are real strong, fumes with that can impact someone with that. Change of weather, cold air more than more humid air, real high temperature, humid weather can impact someone with asthma, but usually more frequently it's the cold weather that can impact, and really just keeping a scarf or something over their mouth so they're not breathing that cold air will help that. And then of course infections is another trigger. Anytime someone has just a common cold or sinus infection, pneumonia, even the flu can trigger, an asthma episode with it. And others would be, like I mentioned earlier, the emotions, laughing or crying or yelling a lot can create problems. Also sports, and that is really a specific type of asthma when it's related to strenuous, activity that can bring on problems.
Is that because it brings stress on the airways with the amount of oxygen that they're trying to get into their body when they're doing that, or?
It's that vigorous exercise that creates, and honestly, I really can't say physiologically what creates, why that is more than just regular exercise for anyone else, but
definitely need to watch them when they're
that. Usually, when you're doing that strenuous exercise, you tend to breathe more through your mouth than through your nose, and I think this has an impact, from that, and that this might be, where this has, come from, because the nose can filter more than the mouth can. There's no filters breathing through the mouth, so.
Right. Okay. Well, how does a person know then if that asthma is caused by an allergen or something like that, rather than the secondhand smoke? Is there any way somebody can tell the difference?
Well, you can add some here too, but I think you don't see the symptoms going away. The symptoms kind of stay there. The asthma considerably gets worse. You don't see it getting better. That's one of the signs, and also it's definitely noted that it's worse within the first 5 years of life, because those children are at home most of the time, and if they are in a house, where someone smokes, then that's going to impact them more. But this, along with any other type of, whether it's an allergy or irritant, just by noticing when an asthma episode would occur, and if it's consistent, or if it's just every so often, to kind of take note of the time that you see, the problems arise, and that also helps. I don't know if you want to add any.
Well, no amount of smoke is safe, and even though some parents and caregivers will go outside to smoke, they need to take in consideration that the residue and the smell of it on their clothes and their hair, and when they go back inside to pick up their child, this may cause an asthma episode, and so they need to take that in consideration, that it is the best to smoke outside, but also take
maybe
in
have
consideration.
a smoking jacket or something that they can take on and off.
Right, something that they can change out of.
Okay, that's a good point. No, we definitely encourage people to go outside and smoke if they're definitely have children in the house. That's good to know. How many children each year develop asthma?
Well, I'll let you answer that one.
Well, being exposed to secondhand smoke early in life will definitely increase the chances of children getting asthma. And according to the Surgeon General, that 1 in 5 children are exposed to secondhand smoke, and those children have increased risk of developing asthma, a severe case of asthma. And in the U.S., there's over 200,000 cases of asthma each year.
Wow.
That are due to just secondhand smoke.
In children?
In children,
wow.
in children.
That's a pretty large number.
Yes. And also with this, it is the #1 reason for absenteeism in school. Asthma episodes are. And so that is, and also it causes parents to miss work, being home with their children, and also adults miss a lot of work with asthma episodes contributed to smoking or secondhand smoke.
All right. And that's things we probably never would have really thought about.
You really don't think of it as being that prevalent, but 10% of a classroom, children will have asthma. So that really does show that there is a problem.
So there's definitely some education that can be done to help parents and other caregivers be able to help prevent some of those asthma attacks.
That's right, how to manage it better.
Right. So we don't have kids missing so many school days, and hopefully also eliminate some hospitalizations then too. Some of those may occur with the severe cases. When you talk about a child that has asthma and then you give them this inhaler to use to help control that asthma, being able to educate a child on how to use it properly, when should they use it, what are some guidelines with that? How often should a child use an inhaler?
Well, if you can think of the rule of 2s, if they're using it more than 2 times a day, more than 2 times a week, more than twice a year that they're going into ER or having distress from their asthma episode, that's a sign that their asthma is not being controlled. Okay. The inhaler is a medicine that's considered a rescue medicine, and that's exactly what it is. You don't want to be living in this rescue mode their entire life. Hopefully it's just absolutely when they need it, and it shouldn't be that often. If it is more frequent than that, then that just shows that they need to go in to see their doctor and to figure out an action plan that's going to help them get more in control, and so they're not having to rely on that rescue medicine. And it's very doable. Being on a action plan really teaches not only the child but the parent, the school, as to what we should do, what's needed, and being more in control, they can then enjoy their life much better.
Right, and be able to function as other children do, and to not feel that the asthma hinders them from participating as the other children do.
Right. And also if they're using their inhaler, it almost gives you kind of this false belief that everything is fine. But what's happening inside is that the airways are becoming tighter and tighter. And what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be an asthma episode where that inhaler no longer is going to work. You know, it really is giving you a sign of there is a problem. You know, you need to take care of it. So if they're using their inhaler more than what they should, there's definitely a reason to go see the doctor then.
Okay. Well, we definitely covered some good topics so far and learned quite a bit about asthma and secondhand smoke and what it can do to children especially. We're going to take a short break and come back and obviously discuss this a little bit more and hopefully learn a few new things as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about asthma control and also talking about the dangers associated with secondhand smoke and what it can do to affect a child with asthma and others with asthma as well. We've talked a little bit about what is asthma and some of the triggers that can cause asthma, and we've just most recently talked about looking for warning signs on if a child or a person is using an asthma inhaler too much and what that means and being able to control that. But one thing many people will probably wonder is if their child or someone they know is diagnosed with asthma, I mean, can they participate in every other activity that a child that doesn't have asthma can?
Absolutely. They can, we would want to have them in control and managing their asthma so they can, go out and play with all the other kids and be in sports like everyone else and enjoy life. There's really no reason that they shouldn't be able to, as long as their asthma is well controlled, and to be able to do that, they need to be on an action plan that really sets up knowing what their allergens or irritants are and trying to, stay away from them if at all possible, or to think ahead if they're, if they need to take their medicine before they are exposed to the triggers. But just, to be aware of what their triggers are and, just know what they need to do. And also to know and to really listen to their bodies to be able to stop and rest when they do start having some signs and symptoms.
So be able to know their own body and be able to recognize the warning signs of when an asthma episode's about to happen. Okay, well, unfortunately, sometimes something may happen where an asthma episode does occur, and for someone that maybe doesn't have a person in their family that has asthma, what are some things that we can educate the people about to be able to help somebody that's in an asthmatic episode?
Well, during an asthma episode, especially when it's severe, and they can get severe, it can be a very scary situation for the person who's having it and for the people around. And the number one thing is to try to stay as calm as you can be, to direct the person to sit down and to rest, to stop with what they're doing, to be able to try to settle down as much as possible, and if in their action plan that they have a rescue inhaler, have them take it. If they're in school, they want to be calling the school nurse to come and assess how they are. If it has gotten to the point where they are really hunched over, having a really hard time, breathing, having a hard time standing or sitting, are a lot more in distress, then they need to call 911 at that time. But You know, usually if you're able to get the inhaler, to see if that has, you know, helped, and try to really keep us calm during the whole time is the best.
Right, definitely. During any emergency, it's best to stay calm.
Yeah, I think we're going to show on the screen the you know, 4 steps
That
of,
can
you can kind of follow through with those and
be familiar with them. All right. So we'll remember the steps to take to help somebody if they are in an asthmatic episode. But of course, remember to stay calm and remember to call 911 if we need to. When we look at asthma as an illness and the effects it has on Kentucky, we talked a little bit about hospitalizations, just kind of mentioned it, but we haven't really talked about that in depth. So as Kentucky, you know, what are we compared to the nation with hospitalization cases for asthma, and then more particularly here in our area?
Well, with the numbers that we've, you know, mentioned before, that there's a large number throughout the country. Well, Kentucky is impacted just as our nation is, and we in our district here in Western Kentucky have 3 of the counties that are higher hospitalization than the state percentage.
Okay.
And those counties are Fulton and Hickman and Graves County are the 3 that showed, you know, higher hospitalizations. And that was through the Kentucky, I'm just going blank here, the Kentucky Asthma Surveillance Report is what, you know, they found in that report.
Okay. So what are we going to, what does that really tell us based on that report that we need to obviously work on educating, but then for those particular counties, will there be any initiatives to help with that education in those areas?
Well, the state has chosen different sites through the state health department has chosen different sites through the state, and we are one of those pilot sites to look at this and to help, you know, increase community awareness, to, you know, pull together a group of partners to look at what really we can do, what are the needs in our community, besides just plain awareness and education on what asthma is. But, you know, how can we help people be, you know, work towards that better control and really learn their triggers and really know more about their own asthma, rather than saying, yes, I have asthma and, you know, I have allergies, you know, to really know what that means, and to really, you know, have their own action plan. I think that is, you know, one thing that we're hoping that we can do in our schools. There's a program that the state has put together, and that is asthma-friendly schools, and that's it's an excellent booklet that they've put together, a great tool for the schools to look at, to see, you know, how can we, you know, help our school? Because not only will they be helping asthmatics, they're going to be helping all the kids that go to that school, you know, by going through. That booklet has, you know, an assessment, evaluation. There's a lot of good tools and resources in that book.
Great, and that's a great way to touch a lot of different families in the community going through school systems like that. Well, let's talk a little bit about then what we can do to actually control asthma, and we're going to talk now. Stacy's going to share her expertise. When we talk about it, secondhand smoke, obviously a huge asthma trigger, but perhaps there's somebody out there watching that maybe says, well, you know, I smoke and, you know, didn't really realize that. Maybe that's enough to, you know, push them to want to become a non-smoker or a non-tobacco user. So, Stacy, can you just tell us a little bit about some of the resources that are available for them in our area?
Sure. One of the programs that we provide in partnership with the Kentucky Cancer Program is the Cooper-Clayton method to stop smoking. It is a class offered here in McCracken County 4 times a year. The next class will be starting up July the 8th at Lourdes Hospital. Okay. And there, people can call the Kentucky Cancer Program and to register for the classes. It's a free class provided by the hospital, and it combines educational video. Was designed by a man who smoked for 36 years, and they do an educational video, a group discussion, and it's a support group. And so the participants are supporting each other in becoming a non-smoker.
Right.
Another thing that we have is the 1-800-QUIT NOW. It's a toll-free number in the state of Kentucky that smokers can call and talk to a stop smoking coach, and they'll kind of help them come up with a plan, guide them through, help them to know what their triggers are for smoking and how to overcome those, and to help them devise come up with a quit date and ways to stop smoking. An online resource is a website called becomeanx.org. And it is another useful tool in helping people to relearn life without cigarettes and helping learn the triggers and some different ways that they can try to fight those urges and overcome those urges. One of the resources we have at the health department is a little packet to save your life, set a quit kit, pick a day to save your life.
Okay.
So anybody watching that would like to have me mail them one, they're welcome to call the office.
Okay, great.
And to the health department office, and I'd be glad to mail them one. It has some information, brochures in there about becoming a non-smoker.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
so those are some of the resources that we have for this area.
All right. Well, thank you, Kaylene and Stacy, for joining me today and giving us valuable information about asthma. And if you'd like more information about the resources mentioned today and the programs that the health department offers, you can contact Kaylene and Stacy at the Purchase District Health Department at 270-247-1490. Kaylene, what is the one thing that you want people to take away from today's show?
I would say that asthma can be managed and it can be controlled. And by doing that, you know what your medicines are, you know how to take them correctly, and that you follow with your action plan.
Great. Stacy, what about you?
The number one thing is, if you do smoke, choose to quit. If you're not able to do that, then take in consideration where you're smoking at, and not to smoke around children or other people that would be affected by the smoke.
Great. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's show, and if you have questions about the show today, you can also call our office at 270-442-1310. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope that you join us next time.